Right, it says we're live.
Hello, Jeremy.
Welcome. It's Mac, isn't it?
That's right.
Good. Oh, yeah. Let me turn my volume down because it's feeding back. That's better.
Hello.
So, right,
Welcome.
yeah. So, Mac and I have agreed to have a chat this evening, a discussion. Mac, do you want to just introduce your channel and just say what you do there?
Well, my channel is called Flat Earth Focker, Focker, like the movie Meet the Fockers. And originally it was, I had a couple other names before I started making videos just to comment on YouTube. But, I liked Flat Earth Asshole's name and I wanted something silly, similar, but I can't call myself Flat Earth Fucker because that probably kick on YouTube. And then that movie came into my head, and I go, the whole movie they say fucker, but they're saying, it sounds like fucker, right? It was a play on words.
Right.
So then I kind of liked that, and kind of kept it. And at first, it was just, when I became a flat earther, I realized, we've been deceived massively beyond any of the other conspiracies. Things were getting pent up inside, and when we're talking to people on a day-to-day basis, there's obviously going to be a lot of resistance, and that's what or a lot of people don't actually agree with it. So, and that's why we're having this discussion. And it just started as kind of an outlet for me to just talk, and then I did want to get into making like really good videos with visuals and all that, and just been so busy that I never learned to video edit, and started just hitting my little recordings as I'm driving along, and all of a sudden people started subscribing and liking what I had to say. And then because I speak it all the time, I would start recording people when I can, when I'm introducing flat Earth to them, or having a discussion about flat Earth, and newbies called it flat smacking them. So and then that kind of picked up. People liked watching that on camera. John Smith does it, Authentic Attent, and Dell does it, and people started liking it. So that's all it is. It's just me, or just a normal average guy, I guess, and just has a YouTube channel like I think most of the people on YouTube do, right?
Right. And I'll just say, my other channel is Gem Panda 2012. Most of my audience, I guess, will know that, but some may not. I've been strangely hanging around the flat Earth scene for a couple of years. I'm not really sure why. I guess I kind of enjoy the argument. I find the subject interesting. But that's really where I am. Obviously, I've done a fair few of these sort of a fair few debatey type things, but not usually in this format where it's just a sort of a one-on-one thing. I did also. I probably should mention as well that obviously I'm not using a camera, and Mac is, and that is quite rude of me, and I should have sorted that out, and I didn't. So I'm going to apologize to Mac for that. And as an audience, you may want to consider that the fact that he is on camera adds some integrity to what he says. So I think that's probably the fairest thing I can say regarding the camera situation. And then just to move it on, then what we're going to do, I hope, is sort of do a bit of a to and fro here. We'll see how that works. Hopefully, we won't get too cross with each other, and we'll just see what happens. So, I'd watched a bit of your flat smacking, and there are a few things in it that that I thought deserved a challenge. But the first question I wanted to ask you, and it's a bit of a toughie, this, so you might want to take a moment to think about it. But one of the things I noticed that you did was you drew a distinction. You mentioned belief systems quite a few times, and you dismissed what people said as being part of a belief system. So what I wanted to know, really, or what I wanted to ask you, was what is a belief and what is knowledge? Do you consider those to be, as I see it, I think knowledge is a sort of qualified belief. It's a sort of a ranked up belief, if you like. But I wondered how you saw it. What is knowledge, and what can just be dismissed as belief?
Well, let me just do a quick Google search for the official definition here. A belief is an internal thought or memory which exists in one's mind. Most people accept that for a belief to be knowledge, it must be at least true and justified.
Right.
Um, well, knowledge, we can have information, we can learn something, and we could consider that knowledge. Like, I could have went to school and, went to college and etc. And now I feel like I'm educated and I have knowledge on a certain matter. What I found out is, yeah, we could be like, education is learning about something, but we could be learning about something that's actually not real, not true. Like it's absolutely false. And we take that on as, hey, I'm educated about this topic. And we could have learned, if we knew nothing about it in the first place or very little, somebody can educate us and give us some knowledge, whether it's false or not, about a certain topic. And somebody might think that's knowledge, but then it just becomes something that we were taught, you know. What I found out is a lot of what I learned was actually a belief system. That's all it was. It's like I couldn't validate it, I couldn't prove it. I couldn't test it for myself, and I found out, wow, everything that I knew, and it's not just regarding flat Earth or conspiracy. It's happened in many aspects of life where we do take something on because we think, hey, somebody before us is an expert in this matter, so they've done the work. So I'm going to take on the information they're presenting as being true. But what I learned was what I had to accept was a lot of what I knew was actually a belief system that I couldn't put to the test. And it was knowledge, it was information in my head. So you can consider that knowledge, but it was a false knowledge.
Right. I mean, I would say that, I mean, I take your point. Sometimes we commit something, we believe it to be knowledge, and then it could later turn out to be untrue, and then it wouldn't be knowledge. So yeah, I kind of understand what you're saying, but what what you said is you need to be able to validate things or test things for yourself. I mean, are they the same thing? Like, for instance, obviously you can test. There are some things that you could test for yourself. I'm not necessarily talking about the shape of the earth, but generally, and those things you could consider then to be knowledge. But what about validating something? What about if somebody else has tested it and you believe them to be reputable? Would that, you personally believe them to be reputable? I mean, not they're generally considered to be reputable, but would you consider that to be accurate knowledge, let's call it? If somebody else has done a test and you trust that they've done the test correctly.
Well, I'll give you two examples. One is my car, which is a little speedy, kind of a mini sporty car. Now, I'm going to trust that Mazda has done the tests and their engineers have tested this car to drive at really fast speeds, and they tested put the proper suspension in there for that car and that weight. So I'm going to trust it for them. When I get in there and step on the gas or I'm taking the corner real fast, I need to have faith that somebody before me, had my safety in mind. Now, after I've done that a few times, I'm like, hey, this car can perform, the tires can take this corner, etc., etc. So yeah, I'm taking that on trust, and somebody else has done the testing. Same thing goes for, let's just say, an extreme sport like skydiving. Hey, you could jump out of the plane with this little, with a plastic bag over your head, and then it's going to open, and then you're going to land safely on the ground. Until the first time we do it, we can watch people do it. So but there are people that did all the tests in the beginning and brought that sport to where it is today. where a canopy will open, 1,000 out of 1,000 times pretty much. I mean, the stats are probably a little bit more. I think you might fail one out of every, with the way they design them now. They are designed to catch air and inflate, right?
Mm-hmm.
They sustain my body weight, etc., etc., all of these factors. So yeah, I mean, other people have done the testing, and I can put trust in them and believe in that. Let's just say science or whatever, that knowledge. But if somebody's gonna, what I realize, if somebody's gonna tell me the sun is 93 million miles away, and I can look up at it, and all my senses and my life wisdom is telling me that no, that's not 93 million miles away. It's a lot closer. Do I have an exact distance? No. Well, I'm going to question that because I cannot validate that myself. And I cannot understand how they're doing it. I know a lot of science students, people that have taken physics, etc. I just had a conversation a couple of days ago with someone. Now, if all these people are going to believe these equations or the methods that they said that scientism is saying that they're using to test these distances, well, to me, that's a belief system, right? And it cannot be validated. And we're putting our complete trust in this because we think people will not lie to us, or the fact that maybe people were deceived themselves are now believing in this false reality, and obviously they're going to teach it because they think they have a false, because they think they have some sort of expertise in the matter, and not realizing it's a false expertise or false knowledge.
Right. I think that, I mean, to use your example of measuring distances to the sun, I mean, ultimately what we're using is trigonometry. It's quite complex because we have to measure, transits of Venus to do it accurately and this sort of thing. But, ultimately that's all it is. It's trigonometry. It's, what we know about triangles and how, they're not particularly complex equations to work out the distances to things. The problem we have is making the bottom of our triangle big enough when you're dealing with such large distances. But anyway, I think you've kind of answered my first question. So, I mean, did you have anything that you wanted to throw at me?
Well, I don't know if you've ever heard Jaron talk about this. Let me do something real quick here. One sec. I wanted to put this on my channel as well. Hey guys, I'm just doing a live kind of a discussion debate with Globy. I'll put the link in the description here. Join us over there if you can. Could have done that before we started.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, I don't know if you ever heard Jaron. Have you listened to any of his stuff? Have you been around the
Sure.
scene several years?
Yeah.
Okay, did you ever hear him talk about like how, so we use these equations to explain something that we observe, but it's not proof that that's actually true. And I don't know if you saw the last video I did, or not the last one last week, with that lady, and I discussed about, I gave you $1,000 every day of the week, and at the end of the week, I gave you $1,000. It sorry, it oh shit. The math is correct. So if I gave $1,000 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. At the end of the week, I've given $1,000, so the math makes sense. But in reality, I haven't given this person anything. But I could go around and claiming, hey, I'm a real philanthropist, and I gave away money, and I gave that person $7,000 last week. Or I could be a real asshole and be like, hey, I gave you $7,000. See this paper? Look at it. Monday 1,000, Tuesday 1,000, Wednesday 1,000. Well, now can you give me some of that money back? You get what I'm saying? This is what I realized a lot was that's all these equations are. The math adds up, but they're not rooted in any reality.
Well, when you say the maths adds up. What specifically are you talking about? You're talking about distances to the sun and stars.
Well, exactly that. The movement of the planet, like orbital mechanics, like the equations are going to add up, and then we'll be like, okay, they're saying such and such a distance and such a distance, and okay, um, the math there is correct, but how do we prove that other than just turning to a piece of paper and doing the math ourselves?
Well, I guess
That's the only way to validate is the math, not the reality behind
well,
the.
the reality, I guess, would be to make a prediction of an orbital path of something that we see in the sky, and you could use mathematical equations to make that prediction, and then you could see if the thing ended up where you predicted it would be, and that would validate your maths with reality, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you could, but I mean, again, it's not definitive evidence that that's actually true.
I think it's definitive. Well, I think it's evidence, but I think if you're looking for a proof, a 100% proof, I'm not sure if that even exists for anything. I mean, some people would argue, and I think I would agree with them, that proofs only exist in maths. That is, 2 + 2 always equals 4. Um, and you can prove that. But I think for trying to prove an objective reality, I just don't think we're able to do that, because you could be in the matrix, right? So could I. But everything you're experiencing could be just being fed to you through some sort of sensory input system, and you could be just sitting in a chair, right?
Could be.
You have no way of really knowing that you're not.
Um, well, now we're getting into, like, okay, I mean, ideally, but you can't use that. I mean, like, see, this is a logic I don't understand. So we're just talking, like, I'm trying to break down. You're saying it's okay that there's no evidence to back up these mathematical.
No. Sorry to interrupt, but I didn't say it's okay there was no evidence. I said there was evidence, but to expect the evidence to prove something 100%, there are so that nothing else can be logically possible, I think is usually an impossibility.
Um, well, I don't think I can agree with that.
I mean, can you give me an example then of something that can be proved 100%? Nothing else can be true.
100%. Well, okay, if we're what can be proven 100%? Oh man, if I cut myself, it'll bleed. Blood will start coming out. I don't know. Is that a good example? I take a sharp knife to my skin and cut deep enough, blood will start squirting out.
But how can you go about proving that is always the case? Do you know what I mean? It becomes I mean, obviously, there's great evidence to support the fact that that's true. We could do it over and over again, and of course, I believe that to be true. I'm not going to argue that it isn't true, but can we know 100% that would happen every time? What about someone with really low blood pressure, for instance? Would it happen to them? You could make a determination of how deep you needed to cut somebody, but that might not be the same for every person.
Well, how about this? If I chop my arm off at the wrist, everybody's gonna believe. If you cut your hand right off,
that you're going to bleed. I mean, I guess that's true. But again, how do you prove that is true 100%? Unless you chop everyone's arm off.
well, if you did it to 1,000 people, 1,000 people would bleed, and I think that would be pretty much
right. Well, I would agree with you. That's really my point, Matt, is that I think that's absolutely reasonable. I don't think you'd need to do it. For me, I would probably accept it if I saw it, twice. I wouldn't need to see it 1,000 times. But that's really my point, is I think that, that seeing it 1,000 times isn't 100% proof that it will happen every time, but it's definitely good enough proof for most people, and it's perfectly reasonable proof. And that is my point, is that I think that if you're expecting this 100% proof, I think that's unreasonable. I don't think that that's out there, and I think you're asking for something that's impossible, and then when it proves to be impossible, you're drawing a conclusion from that you're correct.
Well, here's the thing: there's too many other ways that what they're telling us can be explained. Like, we can hold on to this thing that we're orbiting the sun, but it's well known that, or it's now well accepted that it could be explained. Like, we're told we're spinning, and that's how we get our night and days. And
Sure.
99% of the world is like, oh, that's the only definition, and it makes sense. We must be a globe. And I run into it with very intelligent people using such a simple argument. But that's not the only explanation. It can be explained by a small local light source going over top. And you can model this, and many people have modeled it. So you can model both of them, but now to accept. So obviously, if they're going to lie, they're going to have to make the lie believable. So now, where was I going with this? So you can model it. There is another explanation for it, is what I'm trying to say, for a lot of these things that have told us.
Mm-hmm. Well,
stars and planets, etc.
I mean, I agree. You can model it another way, and actually, that model survived for many hundreds of years. A geocentric system. But the problem is with that model is that there were things in it that were unexplained, like what appears, the retrograde motion of planets. So rather than planets appearing to go around as in a circle, they would go around for a bit, and then they would loop back on themselves, do a little loop back on themselves, and so on and so forth. And that, was unexplained. Why were they doing that? And so the model that we've got explains that, and it explains some other things as well. So you say, well, the sun could be, the sun and the stars could be going around us, but then that doesn't explain why, for instance, the angular size of the sun, that is how big it appears in the sky, that doesn't change during a day. And we would expect it to if it's going around us in a circle, because it's going from a position where it's so far away we can't see it, to more or less above our heads at midday-ish, to a position where it's so far away we can't see it again as night falls. And yet the sun never changes size. It remains the same size. So that isn't explained by a small local sun circling us.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry, I just want
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I've said enough.
Yeah, a lot of that was my question too. I mean, I can see the moon coming up, like a full moon, or the sun setting, and it does look bigger as it comes down. But I mean, a valid thing that I've come to accept, because I was like, how does that happen? When the first time somebody brought that up as, a rebuttal to flat Earth was, oh my God, how does that work? And when I looked into it, and then, this phenomena of atmospheric lensing or magnification can start to happen, I was like, well, there you go. That makes sense. Is it 100% true? Can I validate it? No, but at least here's another explanation, right? That can explain how
But
that would
but
work and why it works that way.
well, I mean, I don't think it does, because I think that if it was, if that was the case, then we wouldn't expect it to be the same for every observer from every position. You would expect there to be, and it seems pretty amazing that from wherever you are at whatever time of day, so effectively whatever distance the sun is from you, this effect always makes the sun the same size. It seems to me you're just proposing a completely ad hoc explanation. I mean, you've said yourself you can't validate it. You have no reason to believe this to be true whatsoever. It's just some stuff that's been made up that you think works. But I mean, how do you explain the fact then that the sun's, how is this effect making the sun always the same size everywhere? How could that be?
Well, I mean, okay, so this is kind of a red herring, right? I mean, it's not going to go either way. Do we have all the explanations? Like, is there a clear cut answer about how the sun works and what exactly it is? We don't have that, and we all readily admit that we don't have that answer, and even the top flat earth researchers and investigators don't have that answer. Well, we don't have the money and the budget and the resources to answer that question. So you are correct. I mean, it is a bit of a guess, an estimation, a hypothesis, I guess, about what the sun is. Because, but then if we know, looking at many other situations, that we are being lied to. So, and the people that we trust to give us the answers, not all of them, some of them are just indoctrinated and now selling a false belief system, but they're taking us money and giving us lies. Well, it would be nice if we can take our money and resources and all this money we pay to taxes and we can investigate this for ourselves, but we can't. You're right. But I don't need 100% explanation that on how the sun works and how the moon works and what it is and what's holding them up in the sky and what's causing them to do this circular trip over top of the earth in 24 hours. I don't need an answer to that. I mean, I observe that as true. The laws of perspective. The sun's traveling right here, but it looks like it's coming up like this, and then it's going to go down like that. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. That does. I'm okay with that. The magnification that happens from the atmosphere lower to the earth due to a lot of moisture and humidity in the air lower. I can accept that to kind of understand how the sun works and not have a definite answer. Um,
But the thing is, you require definite answers for the globe. That was what you said you wanted, and yet here you are proposing something which you have no evidence for whatsoever. You have absolutely nothing to tell me that can evidence to me that this is true, apart from the fact that you want it to be true in order to make flat Earth work. You have you can't show me any example of how
Sorry,
of
Jeremy.
this occurring.
There's some people in the chat that are saying my audio is really low and maybe yours is too high. I don't know if you can adjust it.
Oh, I'll certainly make you louder. I can hear you just fine, but
Yeah, I can hear you
let
perfect.
me alter that. Oh gosh, we're both on really low. Hold on. Oh, hang on.
Now you're louder. I can
Yeah. Right, now you're louder. Sorry, we were both on very low. I'll tweak me down a little bit. I'll put me in the middle now. How's that, chat? In about 20 seconds, they'll let us know.
Yeah. No, you make a good point, right? And that's why I will engage in some of these discussions that are kind of red herrings that don't answer either way. Talking about the speeds, etc. That's why I stick to curvature, water sticking to a rock, a spinning rock, flying rock, and NASA's fraudery. I mean, those are my biggest things. And the fourth kind of a side note is the distance of the sun and the moon as we experience, as we can visualize them, and as we can experience them and feel the heat, etc. So I mean, I try to stick to those because that basically proves the globe, or kills the globe and leads towards a flat stationary plane with no movement.
Okay.
So, if we can get into, if we're going to talk about, hey, how does a moon stick perfectly in orbit with the sun around the Earth while it's traveling around the sun at these crazy speeds? I mean, the Morgul's done enough videos on that I don't need to get into that. It absolutely just destroys the fact that this is what's happening: is we're spinning and we're flying around the sun, and the moon is clinging to us by some tidal lock phenomenon. I mean, it makes no sense, because if the Earth is traveling and the moon is here, the moon would have to speed up as the Earth is traveling this way, and then as it gets around, it's going to have to slow down. Sorry, I'm moving back here. It's going to have to slow down and then loop back around and speed up to catch the Earth. It is absolutely makes. I mean, I guess the official explanation is going to kind of make sense, but we have to have a lot of trust and faith in that.
Right. So, do you think you had to have trust and faith in the Morgul? I mean, do you think he's a trustworthy source on cosmological matters?
Well, here's the thing. I'll listen to someone. What I learned a long time ago in my life was the messages, the teachings will come from the most unlikely source. And what I'm finding with a lot of globe believers and defenders is they have been indoctrinated to believe and trust in only authority. So they're missing the message. And in my life, since as early as I can remember in my teens, I was given answers, or the universe was sending me some kind of knowledge or wisdom or what direction to go from very, very unlikely sources. So it's, you've heard that saying, you don't judge the message by the messenger. Unfortunately, I think 99% of the world doesn't even bother to look at the message. They're busy judging the messenger that is presenting this information to them. So do I personally trust in that John Christopoulos is a true flat earther and he presents good information? Do I personally believe that? Yes. But moreover is, the information that he's presenting, I can forget about who's presenting it and just looking at what the information that he's talking about, and I can look at that and apply my own logic and my own wisdom to what he's presenting, and then digest it and see, hey, does this resonate with me or not? You put something in your mouth, you chew it, you don't like it, you spit it out. And even if you do swallow it, the next day you're going to shit it out anyways, right? Or you know what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I look at more the information he presented, and what he presents. If someone can suspend their disbelief and just listen to what he's saying, it just destroys the heliocentric model, Jeremy.
But I mean, what I would say is that I think he's doing, he's just making stuff up. I don't think I've never seen him reference any observations that he's actually made. I've never seen him use a telescope. He makes assertions about what we should see in the solar system, and uses sort of, primary school graphics to sort of point out what we should be seeing. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think he
but
knows. I don't think he knows anything at all about astronomy or cosmology. I think he's totally ignorant of that subject, but he makes a lot of proclamations about it. I mean, even if you want a flat earther, actually, I mean, even Orphan Red had to disagree with him on. He was talking about the precession of Polaris, and even she went on. I can't remember. It may have been a Globebusters, but even she had. No, it can't have been a Globebusters, but even she went on someone's show and pointed out to him, where he was incorrect. And these are really fundamental errors that he makes. But if you say, I mean, I asked you if you thought he was good on cosmology, and you replied with, well, is he a good flat earther? Well, and does he produce, and he produces good information? Well, is good information, just stuff that you can come up with that, ad hoc explanations, or does it have to be accurate? Does it have to represent reality?
okay, well, let's just take one example of what he says, and that's seeing Venus and Mercury in our night sky.
Right.
Okay, so he's presenting this information. It's kind of like when you look at it from a logical, critical adult mind, you're like, yeah, I can't visualize that. So as much as we can try to model that, that's impossible. And why are people seeing Venus and Mercury in the night sky and it's not early in the morning and it's not like really early in the evening? How is that even possible? I
Well,
cannot visualize with my intelligence. Like I haven't personally modeled it. I haven't taken balls, basket, of different sizes, put a black dot on it, and then try to model this. But I know if I did, like I have enough intelligence and whatever education you want to call it, life experience to know that would be impossible. I mean, I could do it right now. I could put three things on my desk here. Of course, it's going to be on a flat level. How am I going to see, these two items orbiting inside when I'm on the other side of Earth, the night size? So these kind of things, I'm like, okay, that makes no sense. The heliocentric model has no answer for that.
I mean, do you honestly believe that the heliocentric model just can't explain that, and that we've been observing Mercury and Venus for thousands of years, and no one has spotted that we shouldn't be seeing them at the times we're seeing them until the Morgul came along, and I
No,
mean, do you think that's
no,
likely to be true?
no, I don't think so at all. As we know, or I came to learn, the flat Earth or globe heliocentric deniers have been around since forever.
I
It's
agree.
just that it's just that they didn't have a vehicle to spread their message. So when you're indoctrinating a mass amount of people, that don't have critical thinking skills to question it. I mean, here's a perfect example is me. A lot of times in my life, a lot of stuff doesn't make sense, but I just accept it because the experts would have caught on. Somebody would have said anything. So when I look at the
Right.
sun and the moon all my life and I say, that can't be as far as they tell us. But who am I? Somebody like there's scientists and physicists, and there's NASA. They obviously know that it's the distance. So I didn't trust my senses, and I went along with the official story. I didn't think two things about it. I went on with my slave life or whatever my enjoyment there was, and I never questioned it for that exact same reason. And most people are like that. They just blindly accept it. So I do think people have questioned it, but they're not going to get any play. And now with the internet and YouTube, people have a voice to reach people around the world. There were people that were publishing little books and leaflets and pamphlets and probably handing them out or they were handing it out as far as I can ascertain on the streets trying to get people to look into it. But when you're trying to convince somebody to, of this here, look at, I noticed this anomaly in what they're teaching us. It doesn't make any sense. Take a look at it. Your average person, I like to use the word sheeple, sorry, and I'll keep using it. They're not going to look, they're just going to throw that pamphlet away. So all I'm saying is I never gained any momentum. And the Morgul definitely wasn't the first one that came up with it. I don't think he is. but he's the first one that I heard presenting this information that now I can look at with my critical eye.
Okay. Well, there's quite a lot to respond to there. Let me
Sorry.
get no problem, no problem. No, it's good. Have a good run, because I can ramble on like crazy. So you've got to make sure you get your fair share in here. But I mean, what I would say is that, I mean, even now, even if we say in recent times, in the last 10 years, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of amateur astronomers posting to YouTube, posting all sorts of observations, and none of them, to my knowledge, have said, "Hey, we shouldn't be able to see these things." And I would say there is an explanation, and I think the easiest way for you to at least access it, at least have a look and see what it's like, would be to just download. Have you heard of Stellarium?
Hello?
Have you heard of Stellarium?
Stellarium, no.
Yeah, it's a free bit of software that you can download. It's fun. But I would definitely say download that and just have a look at Mercury and Venus in that and see if it makes more sense to you there. Because I think you'll find well, I know you'll find that it actually makes perfect sense. And another thing I would say that I think you could maybe, if you ever get the chance, or something that you could take away and I think about, I'm not expecting you to answer it now, unless you happen to have an answer. But with Mercury and Venus, we see them in phase like the moon. And with the outer planets, we don't.
We see them
we see that. I'm sorry?
We see them in which? Sorry?
In phase. You know how we see moon phases?
Okay.
So we see like a crescent and a waxing and a waning gibbous and that kind of thing. Well, we see that with Mercury and Venus because they're inside of us, because of the angles that they create with the sun. Whereas with all of the outer planets, we see the whole planet.
Okay, well, I haven't researched that, so
no, I'm not expecting you to respond to it now. But it's a good one, have a think about. But I would definitely encourage you to download Stellarium. But the other thing I wanted to talk about that you touched on was, you're talking about people in the 19th century. I mean, I would agree with you. There's always been flat earthers. I would say they've existed throughout history, and I could give you dozens of examples before we get to Robotham. But Robotham is perhaps the most prominent, and he's popularized the modern version of it, along with Carpenter as well. And Carpenter was a fan of Robotham. But Robotham was immensely famous. He was a household name in the UK. He lectured all over Britain. He lectured to thousands of people, and he was very, very well known. He was actually used in advertising campaigns long after his death. So I think he did have a loud voice that was heard. Like I say, he was immensely famous. You can see hundreds and hundreds of newspaper reports on him, and every time he does a lecture, there's a massive response in the newspapers to his lecture. So someone will write in and say, it's exactly like we see now when someone posts a video. Someone will write in and say, "This is ridiculous. These guys are crazy. What's wrong with them? We know the Earth isn't flat." And then other people will write in and say, "Well, actually, I think he made good arguments and stuff." But and he certainly talked about Mercury and Venus. So I don't think this is a new idea. I just think it's an incorrect one. But anyway, anyway. Feel free to respond. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, again, like I brought that up. I think when we were looking at space and all this hokey pokey stuff, like we can't prove it. And I kind of brought it up. So let's bring it back to the fact that we're not bringing it back, but what I like to stick to. And
yeah, sure.
If you ever saw Marty Leeds, you've heard of Marty Leeds, right?
Yeah.
And he made, I think his second or third flat Earth video was, okay, let's talk about the curve. I don't care about anything else. And I agree with him. this point, I don't agree about anything else. If we live on a sphere, if we live on a ball Earth, it curves.
Right.
Where is this curve? And even as you can see, when I flat smack people in my videos, they cannot stick to this. There's a huge amount of cognitive dissonance that happens in Globies' heads that they just cannot, logically keep exploring and investigating this Earth's curvature to learn where it is, when it should be, and how it's supposed to behave.
Right.
I mean, that for me, and you know why I like to talk about that? That for me was my biggest thing. Like, oh my God, we're not on a globe. It makes total sense to me. And even
Right.
if somebody's mathematical or whatever they are, they're logical. If that's their mind, that should make sense to them about this globe model. And where's the curve? So once I took NASA out of the picture and I was like, NASA's fraudery. And I was like, what? And I went to investigate NASA and I realized, oh my God, there is not a single picture here that I would even bet $10 is a real photograph from space or video. Then I was like, okay, take them out of the picture. And then it's like, oh my God, there's no curve. And this is the ball. It's 24,900. And this is the curvature math. And I was like, hold on, this Eric DeBay guy could have made up these numbers and just put them on the internet. And then I started searching and they came up and I, sent them to a university math department and it confirms the math. So for me, like Marty says, let's take everything out of the picture and let's talk about this curvature or missing curvature and where it is and where we can see it consistently. And I know you might bring up Wolfie or Five Red Pears or some of these guys that supposedly, or Metabunk that have supposedly explained why we don't see the Earth's curvature. I've watched those videos as well. I went in there with an open mind and let me see what these guys have to say. Early on in my flat Earth, opening up when I woke up to the globe deception, I went and looked at some of this kind of stuff, and I was like, this is incorrect. Just as a lay person with some amount of intelligence, what they're talking about, it just doesn't make sense, or how they're trying to explain it.
Right. Well, fair enough. I guess. I guess I could go down the road of trying to explain it again. I can show you some curvature that I'd like your comments on. Sure. That maybe that'd be a good way to go. First of all, at least for the audience. So hang on, let me just fiddle around here, make sure I've got the right one. Right. Okay. So let me.
Putting it in the chat or in our chat.
I'll screen share it. Hang on, let me find it. It's actually don't want to do that yet, do I? Yes, do I want to do that? Yeah, I do. Yeah. Okay. So let me just push this out of the way a bit. Hang on. Oops. That's a bad plan. Right. So you see this okay?
Hold on. I'm going to go to my car and get another mic because there might be something wrong with this headset. 1 second.
Sure, no worries, mate. I will talk to my chat.
Sure.
How are we doing, chat? Caveman 444 says, Focker, you are speaking truth. That's why Panda wants to get you confused, so hopefully quit Flat Earth. Actually, before we started, I don't think we did this bit live, but I did say to Mac that it wasn't my intention to try and change his mind, and I didn't expect him to be any less, any less convinced of his position or any more convinced of my position at the end than he was at the start. So that certainly wasn't. It'd be lovely, wouldn't it? It'd be lovely if I completely deconverted him, but I don't think that's likely to happen. So, Yeah, that isn't my intention. I'm not expecting anything like that. He made this excuse about a microphone, but he's gone for a smoke. No one believed the microphone story. Yeah, Roxanne's from your end of the country, Mark. Mark could be your neighbor, Roxanne. Yeah, sorry, it's all gone a bit quiet, but hang in there. He'll be back in a few minutes, no doubt.
All right.
And so, everybody, as you can see, I've completely won this debate, and Mac's done a runner. Oh, sorry. I'm only joking.
Yeah, I know. All right. Is there a link here somewhere?
Yeah, I'm going to share it in the Hangout again. Hang on. Bear with me. So I'm going to have to do this one, aren't I? Oh, bollocks. Hang on. Bear with me a sec, mate. Sorry.
No worries.
That's it. Yeah, I'm on the right one. Screen share. Right, we'll make it big.
Oh, Soundly. Forgot about Soundly.
So let me show you this anyway. You'll have seen Soundly stuff before, I'm sure. But you know, that looks pretty curvy to me.
Okay, so what is he doing? He's zooming in and out. I don't know exactly what he's trying to do here.
He's going up and down on an elevator. And then this has been speeded up, obviously.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, can this not be explained again by atmospheric lensing?
Well, I don't believe it can. I mean, I guess that's kind of what I expected you to say, and that's what people usually say. I mean, he's got loads of these observations. He's done them from multiple places.
Well, let's break this down. I don't know how far this is, but to me, when I look at those buildings, if the Earth is curving, they should be tilted back.
Right.
So, I mean, that's not happening. Like common sense. We're on a globe, and if it starts dropping down, and that does show the curvature, hey, the base of those buildings are whatever 10, 20, 30 feet, depending on how far away he is. The base of those buildings they're built on their own top of the ball, but from my angle, it looks like the ball has fallen down. Well, if they're going straight up where they are, there should definitely be a lean back on that y-axis. And also, then if the Earth is curved, let's just say he's claiming it's curved, it looks like about 100 feet, maybe 150 feet to the middle of those buildings. Well, then I need to see that same curvature. A logical, critical adult mind is going to be like, I need to see that on the x-axis as well.
Right.
And that's the thing with these things. That's why atmospheric magnification or lensing makes more sense, because I Sure, a lot of globies come up with these kind of things in the Pontchartrain Bridge, whatever that's called. How come we cannot then duplicate that on the x-axis? Go to the side of it and look at it curving exactly like it, they're trying to show to us that, hey, this is the curve.
Right. Well, I mean, he does actually do it on the x-axis.
Yeah, show me one.
Which I can
I
show.
haven't found anybody that's.
Let me see. Let me find that one. Yeah, here it is. So this one is a more diagonal. So, but there's a bit more explanation to go with this. But let me just show you this and show the audience just to sort of round the point off in terms of video. So again, this has been stabilized, this image. Let me, I'll make it full screen. So this one is a more side-on view, it's like a diagonal type view. So you are getting some x-axis. But I appreciate what you're saying about, sort of right across in front of you. But let me talk about it, go back a bit and talk about the buildings leaning. Because I think this is a popular misconception in flat Earth, I have to say. I'm going to turn this off because it's going to make us both seasick. Hang on. So, yeah, I mean, the Earth is 24,901 miles in circumference, as proposed by the model. And there are 360 degrees in a circle. So 1 degree is 69 miles, 1 degree of curve. And if you want to know what 1 degree looks like, get a protractor or just Google protractor and do an image search and just remind yourself of what 1 degree looks like. And it's almost no curve at all. It's barely, well, it's imperceivable actually on a protractor. And that's in 69 miles. I think we're looking, I should have probably checked the distances. Hang on, it might even say it on the thing just for clarity's purpose. Let me just see what the distance is.
3,000 miles, no.
It is, distance is 29.24 miles. It's 30 miles away. So if talking about those buildings, if you're saying, what you're saying is they're going to be leaning away from you by 0.5 degree. So again, if you look at that protractor and you look at what a lean of 1 degree would look like, we're talking about a lean of less than 0.5 degree. And I don't think that is perceivable at that distance at all. I mean, what do you think?
Well, can you see if you can raise my volume somewhere? People still can't hear me.
Really? I'm hearing you fine.
Yeah, I hear you fine.
That's as loud as you go, mate, I'm afraid. That's it. Can you make yourself any louder? Can you?
I don't think so. I'm just on the Hangout.
I can make me quieter if that helps. Oh, someone's saying get closer to your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you. I've heard you fine all along, so I'm not really. Well, let's wait for the chat to comment.
All right. So, now it's saying it can't detect the camera. This is fucking weird. So
yeah, your camera's been off since you came back, but that's fine.
I don't even know how to turn the camera back on.
There's a button at the top. As you hover over the Hangout, the buttons appear. There's one with a camera on, but don't worry, it doesn't matter.
It's telling me that its camera is not detected on my computer.
Maybe it came unplugged. It doesn't matter. I can still. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know what happened. My computer is doing.
Oh, now you've got loud all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, I changed the mic setting.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
How's that, people?
You were suddenly a lot louder there. I don't know what you just did. I don't know if...
Yeah, and it's not. Communication with microphone.
You really, that's plenty loud enough, mate.
Okay, that's what they're saying.
I think well, it is for me. Let's just hope. So yeah, you know, they would only be leaning away from you for less than half a degree, and I don't think that that's detectable. And I think the fact that you think you should detect it is an indicator that, you know, you've got a different picture in your head of what the globe looks like than what is actually proposed.
Well, this is what happens with a lot of I kind of like people trashing my technical skills here in the chat.
Your camera's back now, so that's cool.
Yeah, and I unplugged it and plugged it back in. Okay, so a lot of globies will turn a distance into a degree and say, well, half a degree would not be noticeable. Let's come back to feet. So I just did the calculations. It's about 3,174 feet drop is what the globe should be doing. Now, even if we are to accept those videos that you put on the screen as being proof of the Earth's curvature, that does not look like 3,000 feet to me. I don't care if somebody wants to call it half a degree, a quarter degree, 2 degrees. That doesn't make any sense. That is not usable information, a degree. I can't measure a degree because I'd have to visualize the whole ball, the circumference of it. So let's bring it back down to feet. And according to the globe model, 24,901 mile circumference, that's 3,174 feet drop after 69 miles. That's not happening in those videos that you showed me, and I would stipulate that I would be able to observe that much of a drop.
Well, hold on, I mean, we're not talking about, it's 30 miles, not 69 miles. 69 miles is for 1 degree of curvature.
Okay, 1 degree. So let's do 30 times 30 times 8 divided by 12. Okay, 600 feet. 600 feet. Well, I would safely bet that I would be able to notice 600 feet curvature drop, or 600, the base of the buildings leaning back. That, you know, if their base of those buildings were built 600 feet below where I'm standing or where that video is taken, I would say that that's not observable. That's not even shown in those videos. And yes, any human being would be able to notice 600 feet.
Well, I mean, you're very keen to get it to feet. And I think that this is another deliberate, if I might say, point of confusion. Because when you make these calculations, what you do is you say, oh, it's 20 miles away, and so therefore it's 266 feet. Well, straight away, you've used 2 different units, and there's no reason to use 2 different units. You've used miles for one thing, and you've used feet for another thing. So if you were to take that and put that into and use 1 unit, and you had 20 miles times 5,280 feet, I'm calculating it as we say it, then you've got 266 feet in 105,600 feet. You know, when you think of it in terms of the ratio of how much you're trying to see in how much you're trying to see.
No, I think we're giving. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, and I know what you're trying to say, but whether we're talking point something of a mile, a decimal, you know, point of a mile, or we're talking in feet, it's still 600 feet, and that should be observed.
And it's still less than half a degree. And the thing is, feet just gives us a number. You say, well, it's clearer in feet. Well, it's not clearer in feet. It's more confusing in feet.
No,
let me explain why. Because degrees tells you can look at a protractor and you can say, oh, look, it's leaning. It should be leaning by that much, and you can see how much it should be leaning by. Feet doesn't tell you that. It just gives you a number that sounds big, and it compared with the number of miles, and it's bound to sound big compared with the number of miles because, you know, there's 5,000. Well, feet are 5,280 times smaller than miles are, and that's why I think you know, it sounds like a lot, but in the distance that you're looking at, it's a tiny amount. It's you know, almost nothing.
It's
and again, I'll reiterate, when we talk about it in the degrees, so we can actually see what this means, what that lean would look like. It would look like nothing, and that's undeniable. You could go to a protractor now and look at what half a degree looks like, and I challenge you to tell me that, you know, it's significant, because it's not.
But we're not on a protractor. See, this is where, like, we get stuck in a conversation. I mean, 600 feet is almost 2 football fields. I don't know how long a soccer field is. You know, 30 miles. I don't know if you. I haven't been to London.
Okay, how many soccer fields? How many soccer fields? 30 miles. If we're going to do it in soccer fields, you know, use one unit to describe it. Use feet or use miles. You'll have, you know, 100,000 feet in 20 miles, and I think it's 266 feet. I think it is for 20 miles off the top of my head. Or you'll have, you know, a fraction, you know, of miles. I mean, you can do it any way you want, but I say use one unit. Why use 2 different units? I think it's a way to make it make a little sound like a lot, because, you know, as a ratio, what you're talking about is a tiny, tiny fraction over that distance. And I think that the amount of curvature is illustrated in Soundly's video. And what's more, it's backed up by 3D models, where 2 people, in fact, have modeled this to a scale, you know, made a 3D scale model, 24,901 mile globe, and stuck the bridge, a 3D model of the bridge and the pylons and everything on it. And they get exactly the same in their model as Soundly sees in reality. We're seeing exactly the same thing. I can show you that if you want. Let me, in fact, I will, just for the audience's sake, if you don't mind. I won't take long on it, I promise.
So a soccer field is about 350 feet. So now we're talking about 2 lengths of 2 soccer fields.
Right. Okay.
You know, I mean, if we're talking miles, well, feet is, you know, certain amount of feet are in a mile. We're not even talking about metric versus, you know,
it's 5,280. So, hang on. What do you say a soccer pitch was? 350 feet.
That's what it's saying. Yes.
So there's 15 soccer fields in a mile. So if this is 30 miles.
Well, no, I'm talking about the 600 feet. That would be 2 soccer fields, and you know, we should be able to notice that.
What was it? I think, 600 feet. Yeah. Well, what you're saying is, I'm looking at 452 soccer fields, and I should be able to see 2 soccer fields. Well, it's a tiny fraction of the amount.
Well, we need to look at, like, landmarks. So let's look at buildings. So yeah, maybe on the ground, I can concede to you that we would not notice it on the ground. It seems very little on the ground. Now, if we take London, and I've said it in my videos, London, New York, 50 miles across, we would notice 600 feet. That's probably longer than two buildings of a tilt on the x-axis.
Well,
and it's not there, and it's not even in Sally's second
well,
video that you showed me.
Well, again, that would be at 50 miles. If you could see 50 miles, and I very much doubt that's possible from anywhere, but even if it is at 50 miles, it's still less than 1 degree. And of course, you've got to split that between two buildings, one at one end and one at the other. So with respect to each other, they're leaning less than 1 degree apart.
So, well, so you're saying we can't ever notice it anywhere? That's very suspicious of me.
Well, no, I didn't, because I showed you video of it.
Well, again, like, that's not definitive. Like, that could be caused by the atmospheric lensing.
Well, yeah, but I'm not trying to show you something definitive. You're saying we can't see it anywhere, and I've just shown you some. Now you can make an excuse for it, and I'm not negating your excuse, but I am saying this is an observation of curvature. And I think when you see, like you were saying earlier, when you stab yourself loads of times, you accept that you're going to bleed. Well, when this guy goes out and shoots the same thing over and over and over again, multiple times, he does it live. He actually films himself filming it live and puts that in a hangout. He does it sideways on, he does it from a height, he does it from lower down, he does it with the pylons, he does it with the bridge. And then two independent people come along and make a 3D model of it. And hey presto, the 3D model turns out to show exactly the same thing as what he's saying in real life. I think that's pretty compelling evidence.
Oh, it can. I think it can lead an indoctrinated mind to see or believe in the globe. And
why does the mind have to be indoctrinated? Why isn't that, seeing the curvature, seeing the observation repeated over and over again, seeing it modeled, and the models match the real life observations? Why is that just something that can be believed by an indoctrinated mind? Why isn't that just something that a reasonable mind would believe?
Oh, that's a tough question. There's just not enough of it. I'm trying to pull up a picture here. Let me see if I can see a skyline, but it seems a lot of these are fake. So here you have some building. Why is every building in London perpendicular then? What?
Well, how much of London are you looking at? How much skyline are you looking at?
Well, I
would put it to you, if we were to get a protractor now and look at a protractor, I would put it to you that you need to see, to be able to see curvature with your eye, I would say you need to see between 2 and 3 degrees of curvature, which would mean you would need to be looking at what would that be, 138, somewhere between 140 and sort of 200 miles across. And that just doesn't happen. You just don't get that opportunity ever to see that. Maybe if you were very, very high up, you would. But, that's why. And like I say, I think if I were you, I know you don't like my idea, but I would just take a glance at a protractor and look at the sort of angles that you're talking about that you should be able to see. And I would say, you will discover that where you thought you should be able to see things, you'll realize that you shouldn't.
That's a fair point. I mean, if somebody doesn't want to see the curvature, they're not going to see the curvature. And if somebody wants to see curvature where there is none, that'll happen as well. Let me see if I can. It just blows my mind that people would say they should not be able to see 600 feet drop in the 30-mile x-axis of a skyline anywhere.
But we are seeing a drop. I mean, we've got to, when that video goes up and down, clearly there is a drop. But you're saying it's not 600 feet, but I mean, I think it probably isn't 600 feet, because I think there's going to be some. What you're talking about is you've made a calculation of drop, and we need to make a calculation of what should be hidden. Those two values are slightly different. And because drop is as if your eyes are on the floor, and what is actually hidden from you is different because your eyes aren't on the floor. So there's that, and there is atmospheric refraction, but there's always, or nearly always, some atmospheric refraction, and that will have had an effect and allowed us to see a little more than we should. So the 600 feet. In fact, we can work it out if it's 29.4 miles. Let me come up with a figure for me, and you can stick with your 600. Hang on a minute. Let me just. So if it was 29, so the hidden amount would be about 380 feet, 379 feet. I've got probably a bit less because I think I'm not quite sure how high he's starting from. But that's a start. That's from 6 feet, and I think he's probably higher than that. But there is. I would argue there is certainly some drop there. I think that's obvious. Of course, you'll say it's an atmospheric effect. That's fine. But
I think one of these links and just put on the screen that I put here.
Oh yeah, sorry. Hold on. Let me just get back to that. Yes, sorry.
No worries, and then we'll just have it there as well. I mean, I don't have time to could look for something better, but they're not showing me.
Yeah, sure. I understand. I kind of sprung it on you a bit, haven't I? So let me do a screen share of this. Yeah, this is the first one. So I would say here, I don't know, what are we looking at? Probably on the distant horizon there. Well, probably not the distant horizon, but perhaps where the furthest buildings that we could see. I mean, I'm thinking that's probably, I'm going to guess, no more than 10 miles across.
You think so?
Yeah, I think where the buildings are. Can you see my cursor? I don't think you can you? Can you see a cursor? No.
No.
Okay. So you see, if you look sort of just out right towards the back of the picture, towards the right-hand side, somewhere between, sort of halfway between the middle and the right-hand side, you see 4 tower blocks. Can you see those?
Middle and yes.
Yeah, right. So if we take a sort of line, sort of roughly along there, because that's kind of where the buildings end that I can see clearly. It's kind of where those 4 tower blocks are. And then right in the middle is that tall chimney, isn't there? And so I'm thinking from that line, if we take a line right across the picture, I'm guessing about 10 miles, but I'm prepared to be corrected if you think it's more, because it's a total guess,
Well, I don't know the London area. Maybe somebody in the chat can figure out, because if you go right to the right-hand side, there's a building there, right? Just a little bit more over from those 4. And then if you go all the way to the left side, there's some.
Yeah, I'm talking about the full length. I'm just using those buildings to give you where I was looking at in terms of how deep into the picture we are. But yeah, I think
so. They're all perpendicular. They're all perpendicular to each other. You can hold a ruler up, and they're all perpendicular. And even if it is 10 miles, it should be a 66-foot drop to the side.
Well, it should be, but it should be at 1/6 of a degree if it's 10 miles, or 1/7 of a degree. I mean, it's just such a tiny amount. There's no way you would see that over that distance. And I'll give you any distance you want to pick. I mean, even if it's
1 degrees, it's 66 feet, and that's probably longer than that building itself.
Right, so the thing is, we could look at this. We could go to these buildings. I could draw lines against them now, and we could measure the angles that they're at in relation to each other we could actually measure those angles. We can't measure 66 feet. We've got no way of telling that whatsoever. But we know
can visualize it. You know what
we know what the
66
angle
feet
looks
is.
like. We can visualize that. We can just look at a protractor. That's how much it should lean. That's it. It's as simple as that. It's just looking at a line. Whereas 66 feet just doesn't tell us anything. Because as well, we're looking at land. So, you know, one side of the picture could easily be higher than the other anyway. So,
well, I mean, yeah, you have your topography, but I mean, it's still not. I don't know. To me, I would be able to notice it, and I know your argument is, well, it's a fraction of a degree, and you cannot notice it. Okay, let's you know, how about the horizon rising to the eye level? Why does that happen on a ball Earth?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, it's as simple as that. That's really the best answer that I can give you, is that the horizon does not rise to eye level. And I would challenge you to check it. You know, it's quite an easy thing to check. You can get like theodolite type apps for your phone and things like that. I mean, one way I heard suggested that I thought was really good was just to get, you know, if you just get a little spirit level, you know, like the one D Marble took on the plane, a little plastic spirit level, and you sellotape a drinking straw to the top of it, and then you use the drinking straw as a sight. So you sight the horizon with that drinking straw, get the horizon, you know, halfway up the drinking straw, and get someone to make sure that the spirit level is level, so that you know your level, and you know you've sighted it, and then go higher up, climb a hill or go to a high building and sight the horizon again. And you get the horizon in the center, and your spirit level won't be level because the horizon will have dropped. There are videos on YouTube where people have done it, have measured with theodolite apps and things. I mean, it just does not rise to eye level. It's just not true.
Well, I've been on an airplane several times since I became a flat earther. And every time, if it's a clear day during the day, I'm looking, and I got a window seat now as a flat earther. I'm always looking, and as I go higher in the airplane up to 40,000 feet, there it is. I don't have to tilt my neck. I don't have to do anything. I can look out the window, and the horizon converges at eye level, right? It comes with the sky, and it meets, or whatever it is, it's rising up. I'm watching a high altitude weather balloon footage right now, and there it is. The camera stays level, hopefully. I mean, yes, I know they bobble around a little bit, but why is the horizon right at the middle of the screen?
Well, obviously that's where they pointed the camera, you know, so that they're seeing the horizon. I mean, they wouldn't point the camera, you know, directly down or directly up. You know, that's where they're pointing the camera, and that's where we would expect the horizon to be. I mean, that's the same for any photograph. I mean, you as the photographer, you can put the horizon anywhere you like in a photograph. You can have it not in the photograph and take a picture of the ocean or the sky, or, you know, anywhere. You can have it in the middle of the photograph, near the top, near the bottom. You can put it anywhere you like. But as for you seeing it and seeing it on an aircraft, well, again, you need to measure it. You need, you know, is this something that you are able to see? And what I would put to you is, it seems to me what you're doing is you're saying, I should be able to see this. I can't, therefore flat Earth. But your premise is wrong. You shouldn't be able to see it. You've just made a mistake. You think you should be able to see it, but you shouldn't, because you're hearing these big numbers of feet and you're saying, I should be able to see it, but you're not thinking about it of how it would actually visually look. And that's why I keep ranting on about protractors, because that's what that will tell you. That will tell you how much lean should I be seeing? And you will see it's just so minute. But like I say, with the horizon, I mean, if you look around, horizon always rises to eye level, debunked. You'll find people just showing you simple tests that you could just repeat yourself with a smartphone.
Okay, so, you know, you've got your belief or understanding of the globe model. You're going to stick to it, and to me, it doesn't make any sense. And to other flat earthers, we're never going to go back to being a ball earther. what it comes down to is I had no reason to defend the ball. What I want to understand is why globe earthers, why do they want to defend the ball? Like, actually, forget about that. Why? What would it mean to you if actually the Earth is flat and not a spinning cartoon ball? Like, what would have to happen? Like, what would happen to you personally if you had to come to accept this and it was now it's the truth?
It's a good question. You know, I mean, I often wonder what it would be like. I mean, I think for me, you know, if I'm honest, if I was to wake up tomorrow and, you know, I put on the BBC and it says, you know, here are the headlines: the Earth is flat. You know, it would be like waking up in an LSD trip or something. You know, it would be very, very, very difficult to understand at all, because, you know, nothing that we know or nothing that we apparently thought we knew would then make sense. We wouldn't, you know, nothing would. We wouldn't be able to just. We'd have things that apparently worked, and we wouldn't understand why anymore, and that would be very peculiar. However, I will say this, that I can see that, you know, I've hung around with flat earthers quite a bit, and, you know, I do think that there are some attractive elements to the idea that people are attracted to, because I think that people like the idea that there will come this day, one day, when sort of everything is swept away and replaced with this new, fresh, sort of utopian existence. And I think a lot of people sort of assign their own personal issues to this, and they like to believe that, you know, one day they won't have to go to their slave job anymore, or, you know, they won't have to pay their bills anymore. There's flat earthers who are looking forward to the day when they won't have to pay for anything.
I'm one of them. You know, I don't know about paying for anything, but I mean a better quality of life.
And of course, those ideas of, you know, they're attractive to me as well as they are to you. You know, I love that idea, but I think that that's kind of what flat Earth is doing. It, to me, it's like it you know, please don't be offended by this, but it's not a religion. But it's like a religion in that sense, because I think it's where, for instance, Christianity promises this life after death, this wonderful, you know, forever existence in, you know, eternity in this heavenly garden. That I think that, you know, flat Earth is sort of promising that for the here and now. It's saying that you can have that while you're alive. You don't even have to die anymore. This heavenly garden is coming. It's just around the corner. We've just got to get enough people thinking the Earth is, or saying the Earth is flat. And I think that those ideas are attractive to people, and I would find that, you know, that part of it, I think, would be attractive to me. But at the same time, tempered by the fact that, you know, we've got stuff that worked, and we'd have no idea why stuff worked. You know, why does, like, for instance, you know, when you flip your smartphone over and the screen flips with you, it's because of the little, what do they call it? They call gravot. I can't remember what they called. Little devices in your phone that work on the principle of gravity, what we understand about gravity. Now, it could be, as you say, you know, maybe there's some other explanation, but we wouldn't know what that was. We'd have a phone where a thing made the screen flip, but we wouldn't understand why, and that would be weird.
Okay.
So that kind of, and I guess, you know, to go back to your initial question about sort of why I'm here and that kind of thing. Well, I mean, I think, you know, I've often tried to answer that question, and I don't always give the same answer, which kind of tells me myself that I'm, you know, maybe not always being honest with myself, or that, you know, at the very least, I've got differing, you know, motives for it. But I think that one of the things that sets, I'm sorry, this is such a long answer. One of the things that sets flat earthers aside from, you know, other people, other sort of internet, you know, like YouTube communities, For instance, I always give the example of the other kin. You know, these guys who think they're like half mythical beast, half human. But sort of what they're doing is they're saying, "Hey, everyone, I'm right about this one thing. You know, I'm a half dragon." Whereas what flat earthers are doing is saying, "Hey, everyone, you're all wrong about everything." And, you know, that's kind of provocative thing to say to people. And I think that's one of the reasons that keeps people like me hanging around, you know.
One sec here. Oh, well, so you know, my thing, and I don't know if you heard me talk about it, is like, you know, us truthers, we have to face the fact that, you know, we come to the fact that, hey, 9/11 was a lie, and there's something in the sky, and there's something sinister about vaccines. The more we look at it, you don't make excuses for the system. I mean, honestly, like you said, it would shake your world up. Is it? And then, you know, people accuse flat earthers of having cognitive dissonance. I don't know how, after 43 years of believing in something, that after research, I turned around and realized, hey, that was a deception. Cognitive dissonance works the other way, usually, you know, that we're holding on to a belief system. And we went through a lot of pain and, you know, a lot of hurt and a lot of emotional turbidity, going up and down with our emotions and anger. I mean, is this something that I think globe earthers, globe defenders are afraid to feel? It's like that guy who won't accept that his wife's banging his buddy down at the motel. And when, you know, if somebody goes up to him and say, "Go ahead, you got to go speak to the motel clerk, you know, this is the evidence," and he doesn't want to even investigate that because it would hurt way too much. So he wants to keep this illusion that his wife is a wonderful, loving, loyal, you know, wife of his, and does not even want to look that she could have lied to him.
But I mean, I'm a person who has looked, you know, and I think the people who are making the argument are the people who are on YouTube making the argument are generally people who have looked into it. And, you know, I look at it and, you know, you've offered some of your evidence. You know, some of your evidence is you say, well, I should be able to see this. And I look at it and say, well, no, you shouldn't. You've just made a mistake. You just think you should be able to see that. And, you know, with respect, the reason you think that is because Eric Dubay told you. And Eric Dubay said it because Samuel Rowbotham and William Carpenter said it 150 years ago. And he just copied everything that they said. I mean, everything in 200 Proofs is from Rowbotham and Carpenter. You know, none of it's from Dubay.
And that's fine. And thanks to Eric Dubay to bringing it back, you know, back alive and adding more.
But it's incorrect. You know, you're trying to see curve where there's no curve, where you shouldn't see any curve. And well, then when you don't see any, you're saying, look, I don't see any, so it must be flat. Well,
isn't that
like I say, your premise is wrong. You shouldn't be seeing curve. And you need to, I would advise you to at least check when, you know, if you, you know, when you say to yourself, when you find yourself saying, I should be able to see this, you know, do the calculation, work out what precisely it is you should be seeing.
Now, you know, we're going to have to disagree on that. To us and flat earthers, we all realize if we cannot see, observe, or measure the curve, then the curve.
But I've shown you curve, Matt. I've shown you it.
You showed me videos that can be explained, that show possible curvature, but that can be explained away. And again, I ask you, like, even in those kind of the side view 45 angle, the buildings in the back are not leaning. If the globe curved that much, why are those buildings still standing straight up? You're showing.
I think, you know, again, I've got to stop you because I have explained that. You know, if you say, again, look, follow my advice on this one point, Mac. If you say those buildings should be leaning, go and figure out how far apart they are and just look at it on a protractor. Work out what that distance is in in miles, you know, divide it, you know, figure it out on the Earth, 24,900 miles, divide it by 360, and figure out, you know, because you can look at the protractor and that will show you, it won't tell you a number of feet, it will show you what you should be seeing, how much lean you should be seeing. And you shouldn't be seeing it. You're just saying you should be seeing it because you're.
Well, see, this is where we're never going to meet, is because you want it to be degrees, and I'm saying I should be able to see.
Well, it is degrees. It's not I want it to be degrees. It is degrees. That's how we measure circles.
It's degree and it's feet. You can use a different measurement.
I'm sorry, but it's not. We measure circles in degrees. We don't measure them in feet. You know, that's how the curve of a circle is measured. You know, it is. And feet is just, you know, why do you need to avoid the degrees? You accept, I hope, that it will show you, it will give you a visual representation of what you should actually be seeing with your eye. And you're the one who rejects maths, but you're the one who just, you want to represent it only with a number.
I like math.
Visual representation of what you should see. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I believe in math. I'm just saying the equations don't always explain reality. And sure, we measure circles in degrees, but we could do degrees, or we can find out how many feet that is. It's the same thing. We both agree feet or degrees are two measurement tools to you know, that can be explained a certain way. You can call it a 0.4 of a degree.
And the other one doesn't, and that's why I'm encouraging you to use the one that provides a visual representation, because you're saying this is what I should see, and then you're saying 266 feet, which isn't what you should see. That's just a number. What you should see is an amount of lean, and the amount of lean will be degrees. And I'm sorry I cut you off. I do apologize. Please go ahead.
No, that's fine. Yeah, you know, we're gonna go back and forth.
I know. We are. You know, we've been going probably. I don't know. Is it a couple of hours? Let me just see how long we've been going. I don't want to beat you to death with this stuff.
Yeah, I've got 5 minutes. So you know, it comes down to, like, you know, we're not going to agree on the curvature. I mean, we didn't even get to water sticking to a space. I mean, a rock and the magic of gravity.
I mean, do you want to have another go at you know, have another?
Oh yeah, you know, this was kind of fun. I would do another one in a week or 2 weeks. I mean, not right away. I got to go back out of town this weekend.
You can hit me with a load of stuff if you want to.
I know. Well, we could try. I mean, you know, I don't know if it's gonna go anywhere, right? You know, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, I can accept that I was lied to. What my education system was a lie. And it's not like I'm looking for an end to taxation right now. I see the unfairness in taxation. That's the thing. And I'd like to do something about it for my daughter. I'm not looking for I would like instant gratification from this if everybody woke up, but I do see that this is a long-term, you know, issue here. And
is there any possibility that you're wrong about the shape of the Earth?
At this point, no. I know it's not a globe, and I know it has to be flat because water always finds its level. That is, you know, that, yeah, no, I don't think I am wrong on this. I have not. And, you know, we're still out there. I'll go back and watch proof videos again, or now it's moved into a lot of hangouts and, you know, debates and discussions and activism, and that's where the movement has gotten to. It's different than when I got in 2 years ago, but I'll go back and look at them again just to, you know, reaffirm, like, hey, am I wrong here? Let me look at these proofs again. I mean, yeah, no, I mean, I can't. It's laughable. The heliocentric model is absolutely laughable. The pictures and videos NASA gives us are an absolute criminal joke. You know?
Well, I mean, I would love to argue with you on that one, because, you know, NASA's kind of like my favorite thing to argue about, but which is why I avoided it completely, because that would be kind of mean. But
It's your favorite thing.
I tell you what, this will make you laugh. This will make you laugh, Mac. I've got a video on my channel that I made. It's a nearly 2 hour documentary. However, you can watch it at double speed, and it'll be less than an hour. And it's where I present positive evidence for the moon landings, which I know you don't believe. So, you know, have a spin. If you've ever got an hour free, give that a spin, but do it on double speed so you get through it quick.
It's on this channel here?
No, it's on my Gem Panda channel, my Gem Panda 2012 channel.
Okay.
It's called How I Know We Went to the Moon.
Oh my God. I don't know.
I knew you'd like it. I knew you'd be impressed by it.
How could I? Oh, I have tried to have conversations with people. I mean, how do you have a conversation with somebody that believes we went to the moon? That was
I would say to you then,
noticeable in five minutes of looking at it.
Okay, well, I would say to you then, if that's true, watch my video and see, because I give my reasons why I believe these things happen, and what I don't do is I don't do any of the shadows and flags waving. I don't address anything anomalous. I just present what I consider to be positive evidence. And if you can, what I'll say is this: it won't change your mind. I don't expect it to change your mind. But if you can watch my video and say at the end of it that you don't think I've studied the subject thoroughly, well, I challenge you to say that at least, because I think you would have to agree that I have at least looked into it more than anyone that's refuting it.
Well, I do believe you have looked at flat Earth, and you've watched and listened to a lot of the foremost people that came out on flat Earth, and obviously the newer people in flat Earth. Just like, and I wasn't offended, just like you think that we're holding out for some end to our enslavement, and that's why flat Earth looks appealing. I would say globe defenders are, afraid to accept that they've been lied to. And
I'd want to see the evidence that I've been lied to, and that
just gotta open your eyes.
But we can't go on forever, can we? So
no.
So
one last question.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
See if you can answer it quickly.
Sure.
How did two airplanes take down four towers that fell at free fall speed, and not a single piece of wreckage was found?
I mean, I don't think that's true. That not a single piece of wreckage was found.
Well, they found one 6 blocks away that was placed there, obviously after the fact, where the engine didn't even match any of the planes that were supposedly flying. We'll keep it at zero footage.
What I would say to you about 9/11, this is what I tend to respond on 9/11, is that I think that if 9/11 was an inside job, if you like, I think that if the US government wanted to perpetrate that on the US public, I think the way they would go about it would be they would finance some terrorist group in the Middle East through a back channel to actually perpetrate that event. I think that would be the easiest, simplest way to have it happen, with no very little chance of any backlash, because almost all the people involved in it would be dead anyway as part of it. And so I think that would be the best way to go about it.
They can make up people and just publish their pictures and names in newspapers. I mean, that's even easier to do.
If you think that's easier, I don't think that is easier. But anyway, let's leave it there, mate. Because
let's leave it there. I gotta get there.
I don't want to do 9/11, and we'll just be opening a new can of worms, won't we? But yeah, I mean, by all means, if you feel, probably tomorrow you'll be thinking, God, I wish I'd said this and I wish I'd said that. So, if you want a return leg, we can do that. And if not, well, that's fine too. Thanks very much for exposing yourself, as it were.
Yeah, man, I'm here. I'm proud, man. I want the truth out there, and this is the first time I was actually able to, I guess, debate or converse with the globe defender on the internet. So we got to do everything for the first time, and And in skydiving, that would be a case of beer fine to me. Anytime you do something first time, it's a case of beer fine. But besides the point, was, you know, you're a very personal guy. People are calling you a troll and what do they call you?
I'm a famous flat earth troll, yeah.
Yeah, with sock puppet accounts. I mean, well, you know, you're the first troll that, as far as I know, that said, let's speak. So you spoke. I mean, a lot of these guys making comments, they're afraid of speaking. So, anyways, we'll end it here. It's 4:30. I gotta go. Thank you so much, Jeremy, and we should be able to do it again in a couple of weeks.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, mate. Anytime you like. It's been great.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye. And to my audience, I mean, if anybody else does want to pop in, does anybody want to pop in? I don't suppose anyone does. Panda is politely delusional. Oh, that's. I guess there's a compliment in there. Oh, Ireland. I think I've taken on the concave island. That was a good chat, wasn't it? It did work well. I thought it was amiable chat, wasn't it? Chat, wasn't it? Okay, well, I hope everyone enjoyed it, and if you know anyone in the audience, if there are any flat earthers in the audience who fancy, you know, having a go, you know, I promise. Well, no, better not promise. I'll do my best to make it sort of, you know, not, you know, nasty and confrontational. And if anyone wants to do that, by all means, hit me up. I'm always happy to give it a spin. Sniper on deck. Oh, God. I don't know whether that's a good idea. Who is Sniper on deck? I don't even know who that is. Is it Chris? I can't remember. I'll stay the link in. You can have the link. If anyone wants the link, or just come in and snipe it, I don't really care. It wasn't debate tactics. I thought we just asked questions of each other. I don't think anybody avoided anything. It just, I preached a little bit in a couple of places, didn't I? But I think he did too. I thought it's reasonably fair. I did ask Cathexis to moderate, but he was doing something else. So feel free to join anyone. The link's in the chat if anyone would like to join. I don't suppose anyone will. It's well, thank you. I mean, I hope it was better than Nathan's, but of course, you know, people love all that shitty shouting and stuff. You know, people enjoy all that. They like the shit show element, don't they? So, you know, that's where. Although, you know, I got, you know, I think we're up to 50 or 60 people there at one point. So it's not a bad audience, really. Right, well, I'm going to knock it on the head then, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll try and do it again soon if I can find, you know, another victim. See you all soon. Good night.